Gallatin County Beekeepers Association. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about inspections. So today when we're looking at inspections, I want to talk to you about a few different things. So let's go ahead and get started. Whenever you get into your hives, you want to have a plan. You want to know why you're getting into your hives, what your goal is, and what you're looking for. So today we're going to get in the hive on the far left. We're looking for queen cells, and we're looking for appropriate amount of space to make sure they don't need an extra box. So as you get ready to get into your hives, you want to make sure you have all your equipment ready, your smokers going, and that you can keep your smoker lit. The last thing you want is your smoker to go out once you start getting in your hives, and then you don't have smoke if you need it. You also don't want to have to take time to run and get extra frames, extra boxes, or any other equipment you might need. So make sure you have that extra equipment handy. So we're going to give them a little smoke. So first off, as I open the lid, I'm looking at population. I'm looking at how much space they're taking up in the box. That's one of my first determinations as to whether or not they need another box. This hive actually looks like they're taking up quite a bit of space, and they would be considered for another box. The other thing I'm looking for is how many frames have they built out. They built out all the way to both sides. So this frame and this frame are both built out with fully drawn comb. So this box would be ready, or this hive would be ready for another box of frames. So the first couple frames I've pulled out are food frames. If you look at the frame, you can tell it's full of honey. They're starting to cap some of it, and also in some places they've stored some pollen in this frame. So this frame is a frame of brood. If I get in here close, you can see the larvae down inside of the cells. The young larvae are well fed. You can see the royal jelly glistening off the larvae. And also you notice that they've got a ring of honey and pollen around the brood, so that they've got honey and pollen close to the bees so they can keep them fed. So as we go down into the second box, we can see we've got very good population all throughout the box. So this hive is definitely ready for a third box. As we finish up with this hive, we noticed that we had eggs and larvae present. We didn't need to go look for the queen because we had signs of the queen, and there were no queen cells present. So that gives us a good indication that while this box is very full, this hive is ready for another box. It also gives us a good indication that the hive is not thinking about swarming at this point in time. If we don't add a box very soon, there is always the possibility that this hive could swarm, and there's still the possibility that they could swarm. So we'll continue to monitor the population of this hive, and also whether or not the queen is present. So at a different location, we're going to take a look at 3 more hives. So as I walk up on the hives, I'm looking at their general activity. I'm looking at seeing how active they are on the outside. The one on the far right is actually turned around backwards compared to the other two. So we can walk around and take a look at their activity. And they seem to be pretty active on the top entrance. So first glance at population. Population looks really good. Seems to be a lot of bees in here. This hive was also a split, so I'm expecting to find a queen cell or more than one queen cell in here. So as I look over this frame, again, I know this hive is queenless, just because I know it's a split. But as I look down in the combs, I notice that there's no brood or no larva and no eggs. And then if I look down here on the very bottom of the frame, there's a capped queen cell. If I flip this frame over, again on the bottom of the frame, I see 1, 2 very large queen cells. There's a third queen cell there, but it looks like the bees have chewed it out for some reason. It's too early for it to hatch. These cells are probably still about another 4 or 5 days away from hatching based off of a queen calendar. You notice this hive, while the camera was off, I ended up with 3 frames with queen cells on it from a split. This hive was still very strong, so I went ahead again and made another split. I actually ended up making 2 small splits off of that. So this is the parent colony that had 3 frames of swarm cells in it. And then down there's 2 other nucleus colonies now. Both of those have a frame of swarm cells, a frame of capped brood, and a frame of honey. And hopefully in a few weeks, those queens will go out and get mated in about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And we'll end up taking this one colony, which will split off another one, and we'll end up with 3 more. But swarm prevention, I think, is another class. So this is just what we found on this inspection, and we were ready for it, and we were able to deal with it. I'm going to get into this next hive, this middle hive. And if you notice, whenever I'm working my hives, I always work them from the back. I don't want to stand in front of the entrance and block the entrance, because I get a bunch of bees that are coming back from foraging. They'll all be buzzing around me, and they'll just create a lot of chaos. So whenever I work my hives, I always try to work them from the back side. That way I'm not standing in front of the entrance and blocking the entrance. Okay, again, if we look at the population of this hive, we don't see a lot of population in the top box, but if we look down between these frames, we see bees down in there, and we also see capped honey that was left over from winter that they still haven't got into and worked. So we're going to go to the next box down and see what we find. So as we get to the next box, we immediately notice the majority of our bees are in this area. We've still got capped honey back in here, but the population is definitely a little bit lower. So these bees still have plenty of room, but we're going to go ahead and check them and make sure they're queen right. If we take a look in this hive, as we look at this frame, we've got capped cells. As we come in here and take a closer look, we've got larvae in a couple different stages. We've got some very young larvae, and we've also got some older larvae. And if we go out towards the edge, it's kind of hard to see on camera, but there's actually eggs out there. So we know that this colony is queen right. So we're just going to take a minute and see if we can find our queen. Quick search of this frame. The queen's not on this side, so we'll flip it over. And bingo, there she is. So we know this hive is queen right. They still have plenty of food in here, plus the whole top box. So even though they're still a little small, they are going and they are progressing along, and they will get caught up here pretty quick. This hive we're going to work today, these two I said were facing the correct direction. This one is actually facing backwards from the other way that I want it, but I've never moved it. So again, we're going to inspect from the back. So we're going to go around to the other side and work from behind the hive so we're not blocking the entrance. Okay, and one last time, we took the top box off. That is still capped honey that they did not get into this winter. And we're over to this box. You can see our bees are right in this area, so that's probably where our brood nest is going to be. If we look over in here, just glancing down through the frames, we can see capped honey and plenty of food stores still remain in this hive. So we'll go ahead and pull a couple frames out. We're going to see if they're queen right. Obviously, they don't need any space at this time, but we just still want to make sure that they're queen right. So again, I don't need to search for the queen. I see that I've got cap brood and I've also got open brood as these bees have been hatching, and I also see eggs down on the bottom of these cells, so I know this hive is queen right. Their population is a little low, but it's still kind of cool. It's only 50 degrees out today. We've had several cool days for the last week and a half, but I think in another week or so, this hive is really going to take off. This hive has always produced well for me, and you can see it's got an entire box of capped honey still on it. They're just usually a little bit slower to get started in the spring, but once they get going, they really take off. So the last thing I do before I leave the bee yard is I look around. I look around the yard on the ground for a cluster of bees just to make sure that the queen didn't fly out of the hive anywhere and land on the ground, or if I accidentally dropped her and there's a cluster of bees trying to protect her. And then the other thing I do is I take a few minutes and jot down some notes. Every one of my hives has a hive tag with a number that I can keep track of in my notebook, and I also use bricks. Everybody's got a different way of using the bricks, their own system, but an upright brick like over here means that the hive is queenless. This means that the hive is queen right. If there's an issue with the hive, I may turn the brick like that, or I may set it up like that depending on what's going on with the hive. But since this is a queen right hive and they have plenty of food, I'll just set the brick like that. And again, the very last thing I do before I leave the bee yard is I have a notebook of all of my hives, and then I have inspection notes. So I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you learned something today. Hopefully it'll improve your inspections and make your inspections go a little bit smoother. And if you got any questions, let your instructors know, and they can get in touch with me if you got any direct questions for me. Thanks, and have a good day.